Hello, everyone, and welcome to Face to Face. This is AfsanChowdhury. In this show, we discuss global, regional, local, and other issues with some of the most eminent persons of the region, and perhaps even beyond. Today, our guest is Nepali journalist of great eminence and respect, Mr. Yubaraj Ghimire. We are discussing with him how these global developments, regional developments, national, international, bilateral developments are affecting the situation in Nepal and how is Nepal responding and what sort of a future are we looking at in the course or in the light of these developments. So without further ado, Mr. Yuvraj Gill. It seems like South Asia itself is going through a transition, and the traditional South Asia goes, and Nepal seems to be playing a very significant part in this. So, what we would like to say, ask you, is if you also think South Asia is going through a transition, and where is it heading?
Well, definitely in terms of traditional, talking about multilateral relationship and also regional aspirations and all that, with SARC literally defunct for the past, 2 years or so. There are certain messages that maybe those traditional approaches are no longer working, and also the fact that Nepal's or any South Asian member countries' relations with bigger neighbor, that's India, that is going through a there are certain changes visible. Entry of China is creating some kind of hope as well as fear, but again now this is also COVID era. There are fear about what happens after the. When is that post-COVID phase to begin, and what happens to economy? What happens to social interaction, productive activities? There are a whole lot of fear, but it has also compelled the respective government and people and innovators to think about or to create opportunities. I think that's the predicament each South Asian country is facing. There are hope, there are fear, there are doubts.
The last 2 years, do you think had SARC survived, it would have made a difference?
Well, that's one thing that that is being said about SARC is it never realized the potential, it had. Because SARC is not operational at the summit level, we can say that, but at least there could have been a more cohesive and joint approach on how to, ensure, regional survival, how to cooperate, and how to enhance the interrelations on this. So that is not possible at the moment. Yes, we know that, prime ministers or different ministers are talking, when the ministers or prime minister of the SARC level did talk over the phone and all that too. But it was more of a individual initiative than a regional institutional initiative. And I think in that institution or that regional body could have been made proper use of in the time of crisis.
In that case, SARC was, many critics will say, was not possible because India was not interested. And as the leading South Asian country, India's interest matters.
That's
So,
right.
do you think India doesn't want a South Asia, or is India a little careful about a South Asia which kind of puts everyone at the same theoretical level, at least, and given its hostility with Pakistan?
Yeah, well, yes. Unfortunately, SARC always function or didn't function under the shadow of tension between India and Pakistan. That came as a major hindrance towards the regional bodies realizing the stated potential of objective. Although many decisions have been taken, resolutions have been taken they're good also. But that didn't happen. And last time, following those certain events, that India and Pakistan, this contributed in the rise in the tension between the two countries, and the casualty was an effective SARC body. So but not having any institution is far worse than trying to give life to a regional aspiration that 7 countries came together to give SAFE2 way back in 1985. So it will be sad and it will be unfortunate, not to give it a chance, not to seriously pursue the concept that is called SARC.
In this connection, India has promoted BIMSTEC and states that this is a more effective body and it doesn't have Pakistan. So do you think BIMSTEC fulfilled that objective which SARC could have fulfilled?
Well, I mean, BIMSTEC and SARC, they don't contradict each other. They are regional. Maybe, member countries, all the members of BIMSTEC are not here in SARC, or all the SARC countries are not. But they do represent the same aspiration approach, maybe in different fields, that you have regional aspirations, that a regional, aspiration would ensure that countries cooperate with each other, they develop together, they have strong bond. So SARC and BIMSTEC don't contradict each other in that sense. Yes, India did try BBI also as a parallel mini replica of SARC. That didn't work. So why, when you have a larger body, because in 2006 the SARC had Afghanistan included in it. SARC also admitted China as observer there. So when you are enlarging these bodies, why suddenly, why suddenly, reduce its size or go for a smaller body from among the countries that are already member of SARC? Or what is that SARC cannot do which BBI will do? That is something I think, yes, smaller bodies, proximity, political proximity, geographical proximity, and other proximity can bring 2 or 3 member countries together. But they can continue with that kind of relationship even when they are members of the SARC or larger regional body. Okay.
One of the issues that has recently come up is the conflict between India and China and their border areas. And it seems like if you read Indian media, you will see that there's a ganging up against India feeling in India by those erstwhile SARC members. And in Bangladesh, for example, we see enormous non-sympathy for the Indians in this conflict. What is the situation in Nepal?
Well, that is really a worrying thing. The tension between China and India, if that escalates to a war situation, which will have tremendous impact on the economy, on security, and on the day-to-day life of the countries around. And I don't know how far it will be proper for me to comment on Indian media. I'm part of it. I began my career as a journalist in India. I continue to write for one of the prestigious paper, that's Indian Express. I'm proud of it. But yeah. I don't know whether it's true or not true. There was something circulated in WhatsApp messages about a week ago that some journalist asked the Chief of Army, Chief of Indian Army, sir, is war likely between India and China? The way he's been quoted is, how would I know? I'm not a TV anchor. That was his answer. So, I think we are not the only one from neighborhood who are, like, not happy about the way things are projected and a kind of tension being promoted. Uh, I think we have a role not to, like, not to let this kind of tension to escalate into
Right.
uh,
Right.
war situation. But yes, every country, they know that, yes, bilateral relation, I know that Bangladesh-India relations are not what they used to be 4 years ago. Nepal-India relations, because inter-relation contexts are also different. One general complaint was India is behaving like a big brother. In Nepal's case, it was India started becoming unpopular when it started meddling in Nepal's internal affair, into political affairs. And not that India alone is to blame. The Nepali leaders who were willing to accept Indian agenda and interference are far more guilty in Nepal's context than than the Indian authorities who got into that. But it has become a counterproductive. Nepal, despite the political changes of 2000, radical political changes in 2006, this political change was connected with two more things. One was bringing Maoists to the peace process. Maoist insurgency came to an end. The 17,000 people had died during that decade-long insurgency. It was a good thing to happen that insurgency stopped there. But the peace process was also to ensure that there is transitional justice. The guilty to the human right violation from both sides are to, be punished. Third was implementation of the peace accord. Peace accord was, that the Maoists and the government of the day signed the peace accord, but none of those major provisions have been fulfilled except one or two, that Maoist combatants have been integrated in security agencies and they have been settled. One, to the election to the Constituent Assembly took place. But the major dishonesty that the international community that was dictating the peace process happened was anywhere in a conflict country, the peace accord is signed between the parties in the conflict. Here in Nepal's case, the two sides, the same side of the conflict, that was Nepali Congress, its leader G.P. Koirala was the prime minister, and Puspakamal Dahal, they have been working together against the monarchy for the previous 2 years. They signed the accord, whereas one side of the conflict, that was monarchy, was left out entirely. And that is largely responsible for this peace accord, like losing legitimacy. Why would Nelson Mandela be, forming an interim government with the representative of apartheid regime there in South Africa? Anywhere that happens, but here it was deliberate, and that has created, suspicion in the mind of the people. Why was international community, and I include India there because we are discussing this issue in the context of regional, affairs. India, that took the lead role in political change in Nepal, was very, very eager that one side of the conflict is left out so that conflict cannot be actually addressed, in a durable manner. That is what the Nepalese are facing. Despite those radical political changes, the fact that, that political change is, that cannot be viewed in isolation. It has to be related in the context of successful conclusion of the peace accord and addressing the causes that led to the previous conflict. We haven't done that. So there are chances of that, conflict appearing or resurfacing in some other manner because we didn't go into the root deep below.
But of course, when I was in Nepal, I remember the insurgency. I was there in 2000, 2001. It was pretty strong.
That was peak, yeah. That was the peak time.
Yeah. But is there any chance of a return? Has those issues been resolved that had given rise to the incident?
No, unfortunately not. That's what I'm saying. Now, when Maoists joined the peace process, they had said that they joined the political mainstream and out of the democratic, system, democratic process, and they will also be part to the peaceful, peaceful conduct or pursuit of politics. But the Constituent Assembly never debated whether weapons can be instrument of political change. If Maoists don't agree even now to the fact that, if they don't discard weapons as the instrument of political change, you cannot stop other, disgruntled groups from raising the arms in future. So it has, in a way, given legitimacy to the politics of arms in Nepal. So this was an issue that should have been settled, which has not been settled yet.
Okay, right. Meanwhile, in the reason Nepal has been so much in the news, but recently, I myself have written a couple of pieces on this, was the Nepal's Indo-Nepal border, let us say, how will I say, disagreement, if you will, the map issue. And do you think the map is one of significance, symbol, or substance? Where would you put it?
Well, it's a like symbol. The issue of symbol came much later when a substantive issue was found not to have been resolved all these years. So it was basically Nepal-India borders were demarcated on the basis of 1816 treaty between Nepal and East India Company. And, India inherited that border as an independent country in 1947. There are different theories about how India came to occupy that 370 square, kilometer area along Nepal, Tibet, and India border. Although, it's not a new thing between India and Nepal, because in the southern side, there are rivers, which are basically the natural boundaries, although they are pillars. But at times they will change the course. That happens internally, that has happened between India and Nepal. There's one major problem, Susta in the south, that side. But here, it was, clearly the Kali River was the boundary, like west of Kali, east of Kali, that's how India-Nepal border were defined. But when it was found much later in the 90s that certain Nepal territory were occupied by India, I think Nepalese did take up. And I remember in one of the Prime Minister's visit, G.P. Koirala's visit to Delhi, I was there. And Atal Bihari Vajpayee, as Indian Prime Minister, said that we're not interested to occupy even 1 inch of Nepali territory. And they decided, at the Prime Minister level, it was decided that a joint machinery to be led by the foreign secretaries of two countries will settle the issue. But between 2000 and 2020, nothing, it didn't move an inch. But things came up, it got an altogether new dimension when India, made the constitutional amendment, scrapping Article 370 in August 2019. In 2019 November, India did bring out those a new map in which those territory, which were called disputed territory, were included in the map. So Nepal officially wanted to have dialogue with India and requesting that those areas be excluded from the map. But India was somehow not keen for a dialogue. And then in the map that was published in May, June, Nepal also included those territories because both sides had agreed that they were disputed territory. Any territory is disputed because both sides or multiple sides claim it. So Nepal also included that territory in the map. And now coming to the symbol, in Nepal's new constitution, they have, devised this new, national emblem, including the map of the country. So naturally, when like Nepal published a new map claiming that this is our actual territory, uh, then they had that symbol published. So it's become a substantive issue, a substance as well as symbol. So they are
The
quite
symbol, very
fundamentally
significant.
interlinked now.
No, right. Okay, moving on a bit. I was reading media today, and we noticed that there is talk of a greater Nepal movement. Is there any substance or in this kind of an idea? And what would greater Nepal really mean?
Well,
I think
well,
international
there,
media is kind of thinking that in the recent past, because the issues of territory, particularly Indo-China territory, Indo-Nepal territory, even Bangladesh in the territories are a bit fluid than before. So let us say that, is this how far Nepal says we are and no more? Or are you saying there are other disputes?
well, between like I mean, territorial dispute arise only between the countries that share their border. It's
Borders.
only natural that like India and Nepal, or for that matter, in some way, India and China at times that these issues have come up. But as far as the greater Nepal issue is concerned, there are certain individuals, not so much organization, or not a very organized kind of thing. What they're saying is, way back in prior to 1816, Nepal had huge territory which it lost to the East India Company in 1814-16 war. Now that East India Company is left India long ago, that territory should belong to Nepal. That is more of an academic discussion and certain people raising it. I don't think that has ever become the agenda of the two government.
Okay.
But the point is, when a situation deteriorate and when legitimate border issues are not settled amicably and seriously, they will indicate two, three things. Either one or the both sides are not willing to settle those issues, or that they are not willing to settle those issues, or they feel that they are not competent enough to settle the issues. And if that doesn't happen, the tension will increase, and that might lead to different things. Like people, it might trigger people's sentiment. After all, territory becomes emotional issues, emotive issues. So, but
Yeah.
as far as the Greater Nepal issue is concerned, that's what I said. Nepal and India had accepted 1816 arrangement or treaty as the treaty defining their territory.
Okay. Right. Moving on a little bit, which is reading another article in international media saying that the Indo-China conflict has produced new configurations. And one of the beneficiaries of this configuration, they're saying, is Bangladesh. Now, the reason I'm mentioning is that America seems to be interested now in providing more military weapons to Bangladesh because it feels that China has become very strong in the region. So it wants to counter Chinese influence. Now, do you think it is at the level where Western media is particularly anxious about Chinese influence in South Asia, or do you think it is
Well,
different?
well, definitely, in many ways. Now, obviously, China and US. US is definitely, like worry about growing influence, security, and like economic size of China. They are real competitors, and yeah, in Bangladesh context, US might be, like pursuing its diplomacy or defense policy in one way. In Sri Lanka, it could, it may have a different approach. In Nepal, it has got different approach. In Nepal, what happened? Although US is one of the one of the oldest, country that Nepal had diplomatic relation with. But of late, American approach is somehow different in Nepal. One major thing is it's a MCC, that Millennium Challenge, corporation deal, $500 billion, which Nepal and the MCC, they have already signed it, but it is pending. But it, it has not, it is not being implemented in the pace is expected, because Nepal Parliament is yet to ratify it. Some members from the ruling Nepal Communist Party fearing that it has a security and military component. It is part of the Indo-Pacific strategy, that's their fear. So this issue is being debated, and the Nepali Parliament has to take a decision, although the Prime Minister and leader of the opposition, they are very clear that this needs to be ratified. That's one. Two, in 2006, 5-6 political change, when Maoists came to the center stage of Nepali politics in the monarchy, India took the lead role, but India also brought along with it US and European Union, Nepal. So that actually brought China, because China was always very clear about not interfering in Nepal's internal politics, except the Tibetan affairs, because there's a sizable number of Tibetan refugee population in Nepal. Other issues they are not interested in. But after the larger and visible presence of US and EU, along with India in Nepal post 2006, China started seeing threat. Why is this axis hostile to China having such a big presence in Nepal? And that brought China in a big way. Now China is one of the, China is the biggest FDI contributed Nepal 4 consecutive years. It has established, government agency to agency relationship in Nepal. They have increased their presence. Now Nepal is signatory to BRI, and it has its implication. US will be pursuing it in their own way. India would be pursuing it in their own way. And the other, India and Nepal became a secular country in 2005, but European Union and America have slightly different approach on what secularism should be like. They emphasize on the right to conversion.
Okay.
They have very clearly said that secularism without the right to conversion is a fundamental right in the constitution has no meaning. They're very clear about it, and this is also creating some social record. And some of the European and American agencies are also promoting federalism based on ethnicity, something that China also feels threatened by, given Nepal's proximity with Tibet and here, so these are the issues that China and US are at war with each other in Nepal. So this is also a kind of competition between who calls the shots in Nepal, who has a larger influence in Nepal. So and with presence of nearly 250 international NGOs and large number of donor agencies from the West, including US, and Nepal's political parties, especially the UML component of the ruling Nepal Communist Party, is a larger beneficiary of Western donors. So the US has a larger influence on the ruling party, despite its legal Communist Party.
But if I just go into Bangladesh again, drawing a bit of comparison, in Bangladesh, the Chinese presence, just like in Nepal, in trade, is so significantly higher than India that India's traditional allies in the power space,
Yeah.
that is, has weakened. Weakened means that the business community is very big. So the business community is very pro-China because you do your business there.
Yeah.
But culturally, of course, in many ways, like Nepal, Bangladesh's links with India is very close
Yes.
culturally. There is almost
Yes.
no culture link with China. But in policy making, the current prime minister is very astute because I think she plays with her lack of power very positively.
Right.
She is
Right.
equidistant from both. So in Nepal, is this equidistancing working for Nepal, or is Nepal not interested in equidistancing?
Well, no. I mean, like, if you look into Nepal's, the diplomacy Nepal pursued since 1768, that great king Prithvi Narayan Shah, who is credited as the unifier of modern Nepal, he clearly advocated a policy of equidistance. And he said Nepal, a small country, is like a tender yam between two boulders. So
Yeah,
basically, he was referring that it has to be very sensitive, it has to be very delicately balanced, and all that. And also, when he said two boulders, that he also anticipated that at times the country could be ruthlessly insensitive towards Nepal. That probably was his. But 2006 political change, it has also, this drastic or radical political change has also led to some kind of confusion. Now, Maoist, interestingly, you know much more about Nepal. So, Maoist, during their insurgency, uh, India did, support Maoists, and India did collaborate with the Maoists, although India's officialdom called them terrorists. So it is like in
terrorists.
Sri Lanka, India joined hands with the Maoists. Now, but when Maoists came to the peace process and became part of the government and became major political force in Nepal, they had to face, there are a lot of contradictions in their approach because one, they are very grateful to India for having brought them to power and, having collaborated with them. But at the same
Yeah,
time, they didn't want to give up their, worldview of a communist, that a communist has to be anti-imperialistic and
yeah.
anti-hegemonic, as they say. I'm quoting.
I
So
know.
so Prasanda at times, criticizes the US on Venezuela, but the real dilemma comes there. They are allies of India still. They are grateful to the UPA government led
Yeah,
by Manmohan Singh and Sonia Gandhi for what happened. Of course, the bureaucracy is part of it.
yeah,
What happened
right.
here, but at the same time, they have to show to the world that we are, like comrade in arms. So we are much closer to China. So now they cannot say which. Now at times when they are in the government, they say that okay, China cannot substitute India. Truly, in a way, because Nepal's
Yeah,
trade, Nepal's border, and all that. But now, post 2015, when India imposed a economic blockade in Nepal, and when Oli was the prime minister, he signed, trade and transit agreement with China. So Nepal doesn't have to, of course, geographically and infrastructure-wise, Nepal is still dependent on external trade with India. But in a complicated situation, now it has in China as well. Although the Chinese ports are quite far away from here compared to the Kathmandu's distance to Calcutta, but that Nepal is opening up and Nepal trade is increasing with China. And when President Xi Jinping came to Nepal after that famous Mahabalipuram
yeah,
picnic, when he came to Nepal, so he said, China is interested in investment in four areas. They are very vital. One, trade and investment, tourism, energy, and post-earthquake reconstruction. That literally covers the whole thing. And they are, as a matter of tactic, they have increased their presence in Nepal, Tarai area, where India and US and European Union had also increased their presence.
Given the change that we have seen, the fluidity in the region, do you think it's possible, because again, I'm quoting international media, that China may try to float a regional body of some kind or other? And I think there has been some discussion that it might happen around BRI. Do you think there is a possibility?
Well, I don't think at the moment that, like leaving out India, like most countries will join hands with the regional body initiated by China. I don't see that possibility immediately, but I see China deeply entrenched bilaterally with almost all the countries that India shares its borders with, and India has a very traditional relationship with.
Okay. Mr. Ghimire, thank you so much. A lovely interview, lovely conversation. Thank you
My
so
pleasure.
much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.